Hello, welcome back to the YouTube channel of Bethel Evangelical Free Church Hanley. I'm Pastor Gervais Charmley. This is another video in the series on Derbyshire churches. This is All Saints Elton in the Peak District. There's been a church here since probably the 12th century, but nothing of it survives today because in 1806 the church tower collapsed, or the spire. There's a great spire here. Then it collapsed onto the church, wrecking the building, and the decision was made the damage was so great it would be much easier to just rebuild new. So between 1806 and 1812 this current building is constructed, and it's a really good example of one of the Peak District churches of this period. It's a simple building. As you can see, there is no structural division between nave and chancel because it's a Protestant church, it's a preaching box. So the structural division between nave and chancel is unnecessary. It's just not something that this kind of building needs. It's also a much simpler structure if you don't do that, because it just means that you've got your four walls and a roof. It's the kind of building that your local builders can do very easily. They're used to building barns, they're used to building cottages. Four walls and a roof, well within the abilities of local builders. No need for any of this fancy architecture, no need for any of these joining things on, making funny roof structures. So this is your simple building. Now, because we're not that far away from Stony Middleton, where we looked a few weeks ago, if I recall when I'm putting this video out, we looked at a building that's quite experimental, but this is the other end of the 17th, 18th century, particularly the 18th, 19th century. This is the other end. This is the simple building. This is, we need a building to worship in, and we need it quickly. So we'll have a look around. There's at least one relic from the medieval church to be seen here, but this is really, it's a building of the early 19th century that has been altered to fit changing patterns of worship in the later 19th century and into the 20th century. And even in the 21st century, there's not a lot to see from this current century. So without further ado, let's have a look around the building. So here we are outside at Elton, and you can see the simplicity of the building, just the simple tower, no spire, because of course it was a spire that destroyed the previous building, and then you've got the little porch on the outside, which again very important to shelter people coming in, and just these simple windows along the side, simple wide tracery, so whether they're original 1812 windows or later edition, they're still quite simple. And again, there's no distinction between nave and chancel. Door halfway along. Very typical of this kind of period. You're rebuilding, but you're rebuilding on a budget. You're rebuilding using the abilities of local builders and also you're rebuilding for a building that is to be basically a simple place of worship, preaching house, place where you have your prayer book service. So this is the outside. Now we'll just carry on around the outside. There's a lorry trying to do something at the moment, I'm not sure what. And also there's some road work, so you may hear that in the background. So here we are. Please ignore the lorry reversing noise. Yeah, see, simple, it's local stone, of course. It's all of a piece, all of a date. There's no remains of the previous building incorporated. The east window is rather obviously a later addition. We'll just back up a bit ourselves here to be able to get it all in there. There we are, simple oblong building, as I say, 4 walls and a roof with a tower on the end. The clock is working, so yes, that is the time. There's a very extensive graveyard. This is now, although it was at one point, there was a Western Reformed chapel, this is now the only place of worship in the village. I can't tell you anything about the churchmanship here. It clearly has had a high church period because of the interior, but there's not that much evidence of sort of high churchism today. You haven't got, for example, the burning sanctuary lamp. I think that's the old rectory over there, just beyond. Certainly it's big enough and grand enough, because this is not a very wealthy village. This is not one of these places where you've got some great local landowner, hence the simplicity of the church here. Vestry here, be a bit careful, they've got the primary school next door, and obviously you don't want to film that, but also if it's playtime, then they will be out playing and making the sounds that children do. You see there that we've got the cast iron tracery in the window of the vestry, and you can see there those two 18th century round-headed, or 18th century style round-headed windows, which I suspect all the windows would be like that originally. We've got here, this is Reverend John Ferguson Garrett. This is John Ferguson Garrett's burial place here, son of the Reverend John Fisher Garrett, BA, rector of this parish. Now we have the church there with you can see the wide tracery and the cast iron of the vestry. Cast iron trace and wide tracery is quite popular, and it gives you this Gothic feel, but with all the convenience of modern technology. It therefore, of course, fell out of favour among the Victorians, who wanted to have simply all the inconvenience of the Middle Ages. Solid tower, you will notice the round-headed windows. The pinnacles are a Victorian addition, again to say, let's make it feel a bit more medieval, because we want it to be more medieval, and it doesn't feel medieval enough. Because again, the Victorians, the big thing is, let's have it looking medieval. So that's round the north side, and we carry on around. Yeah, yes, that very much is the old rectory, because it's now a private house, so we won't peer at it for too long. There's the Duke of York Inn. And notice once again the village pub is right next to the church. The two are together for convenience. It's almost this is the centre of the village. This is the centre of and it is the centre of the village. So there we are. There's got the school next to it again. Be careful. We don't want to film anybody. Ignore the sound in the background. Someone asking whether they can get through to a particular place because they've got the road closure here. So we'll continue back around here away from the main road and people asking about road closures, and we'll then say a few closing words. Well, so here we are. That's All Saints Elton, a tiny little example, well, not tiny little, but a small and very interesting example of how an early 19th century church has then been adapted for later 19th century worship, and then adapted into the 21st century for the changing things that are expected in churches. Particularly, of course, you've got the kitchen at the back there, which 19th century didn't do that. You would have had a church hall or something, and also, of course, people's expectations of catering and such like were so much less in those days. So there we are. Well, thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. I enjoyed coming out here to make it, even on this bit chilly November day. So again, thank you for watching, and may God bless you and keep you.